In part 1, we followed Isabella Vance, a powerful CEO of Vance Innovations, as she unexpectedly crossed paths with Ethan Cole, a mysterious massage therapist working at a quiet spa in Brooklyn. What caught Isabella off guard wasn't just Ethan's calm demeanor, but his unwavering refusal to accept her multi-million-dollar offer. Intrigued and challenged, she dug deeper into his background, only to uncover a shocking truth. Ethan is actually Ethan Thorne, the missing heir to one of New York's most ruthless financial dynasties. When Alistair Thorne's men, Ethan's father's enforcers, began to close in, things spiraled into a dangerous chase that Isabella never saw coming. Now, in part 2, Ethan is forced to abandon his quiet cover to protect the people he cares about. An unexpected ally emerges, Sarah Jensen, Isabella's quiet and loyal assistant, who steps in and rescues the group just in time. Together, they discover that Alistair is secretly trying to take over Vance Innovations through shady financial tactics. Ethan begins fighting back from the shadows, tracing money trails and shell companies, while Isabella holds the front line, protecting the company's reputation through sharp media strategy. And then comes the boldest plan of all, infiltrating the headquarters of Thorne Consolidated to steal the very evidence that could bring Alistair down. Stay tuned. Part 2 starts right now.
As the first police officers approached, Ethan raised his hands, a gesture indicating he had no intention of resisting. He knew that explaining everything would be very complicated, especially since his true identity and what had just happened involved a powerful family like the Thornes. But right now, he had no other choice. "What happened here, sir?" An older police officer, apparently the one in command, approached Ethan, his eyes scrutinizing. "We received a report of a serious altercation." Ethan took a deep breath. "Officer, I was the victim of an assault. A group of men tried to kidnap me and 2 friends." He tried to keep his voice calm, choosing his words carefully, not wanting to reveal too much sensitive information immediately. "Victim?" The officer frowned, looking around the scene. "You don't quite look like a victim. Where are the others?" "They fled when they heard your sirens." "My 2 friends were also lucky enough to escape with the help of a passerby." He didn't want to mention the motorcycle, as he didn't know who the rider was or if they wanted to involve the police. The interrogation continued right there on the scene. Ethan provided personal information under the name Ethan Cole, the address of Sanctuary, and a brief description of the attackers, as well as the unmarked black sedan. He tried to avoid mentioning Alistair Thorne or Julian Croft, knowing it would only complicate matters further without concrete proof. Julian, though a coward, was also smart enough not to leave direct traces. And Alistair, his father, was even more of a master of concealment. After taking his initial statement and documenting the scene, the police allowed Ethan to leave, but instructed him to stay in touch and be available for further investigation. When the last police car lights finally disappeared, Ethan stood alone in front of the now devastated sanctuary. The door was shattered, furniture disarrayed inside. The place that had once been his haven was now tainted by the violence and power of the Thorne family. He stepped inside, picking up what remained. The physical exhaustion from the struggle was nothing compared to the heaviness in his mind. Isabella and Marcus were safe. That was the most important thing. But who was that mysterious motorcyclist? Why did they help? And would Alistair easily let this go? Ethan knew the answer was no. His father would never give up until he achieved his goal. While Ethan was cleaning up, his phone rang. An unknown number. He hesitated for a moment, then answered. "Ethan Cole?" A female voice came on the line, a bit hoarse and distorted, as if using a voice changer, or perhaps due to a bad signal. "Who is this?" Ethan asked warily. "It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that Miss Vance and Mr. Bellwether are currently safe. I've taken them to a secure location. They asked me to let you know," the female voice replied. Ethan breathed a sigh of relief. "Thank you. Can I see them?" "Not yet. Alistair Thorne is not an easy man to deal with. His network in New York is vast. You and they both need to be more careful. I'll contact you again when it's appropriate. For now, take care of yourself." "You did very well tonight, Ethan Thorne," the female voice said. The woman hung up before Ethan could ask anything more. Her last words, "Ethan Thorne," showed she knew his true identity. That only added to the mystery. Ethan sat down on an intact chair, his mind reeling. He needed to find out who this woman was. She could be an unexpected ally, or she could be another potential danger. But at least Isabella and Marcus were being protected. He thought about Isabella, about her steadfastness and courage when facing Alistair. She could have chosen silence, chosen safety for herself, but she had spoken up to defend him, to defend what was right. It made Ethan's heart stir in a strange way. He realized that the relationship between him and Isabella had gone far beyond the bounds of a therapist and client, or a secret she was curious to uncover. A deeper connection was forming between them, a connection tested and forged through danger. Ethan knew he couldn't keep running anymore. He had to face Alistair, not only to protect his own freedom, but also to protect those he cared about. This fight would be long and arduous, but this time he no longer felt alone. Isabella's gaze, Marcus's determination, and even the mysterious help of the motorcyclist all gave him strength. He stood up, looking around Sanctuary one last time. Perhaps this place was no longer a safe haven. He needed a new plan, a new strategy, and the first thing he needed to do was to find out who was a friend and who was an enemy in this complex chess game. Miles away, in an apartment hidden in the heart of New York, Isabella Vance was still reeling. The breathtaking escape on the motorcycle, the sounds of what might have been gunfire or loud impacts from the struggle, the image of Ethan facing his father's men alone, it all replayed in her mind like a slow-motion film. Marcus Bellwether placed a warm cup of tea in front of Isabella, his face showing clear exhaustion, but his eyes maintained their composure. "Drink some tea, Miss Vance. It'll help calm you. We're safe here, at least for now," Marcus said gently. Isabella tremblingly took the cup, the warmth spreading through her fingertips. "That woman, who is she, Mr. Marcus? Why did she help us?" Marcus shook his head. "Honestly, I don't know, Miss Vance. She appeared so unexpectedly, but clearly she knows Ethan, and perhaps Alistair too. In the complex world of the Thorns, an enemy of an enemy sometimes becomes a reluctant ally." Isabella fell silent. She thought about Ethan, about the shocking truth she had just learned. The massage therapist with healing hands and a soul seemingly detached from the world's hustle and bustle was the heir to a financial empire rife with schemes and crimes. The contrast was too great, too hard to accept. But then she remembered the look in Ethan's eyes when he admitted his identity, the pain and burden within. She remembered his courage when facing his father and his recklessness in trying to protect her. "Mr. Alistair won't let this go, will he?" Isabella asked, her voice full of worry. "He'll find us and he'll find Ethan, most certainly," Marcus affirmed. "Alistair Thorne isn't one to easily accept defeat, especially when his pride has been wounded. Ethan is his only weakness and also his only remaining pride, whether he admits it or not. Ethan's public defiance and the fact that he had help will only enrage him further. We have to do something," Isabella said, determination returning to her voice. "We can't just sit here and wait. Ethan is out there alone." Marcus looked at her, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Miss Vance, you genuinely care about Ethan, don't you?" "It's more than just curiosity now." Isabella didn't answer the question directly. She looked out the window where the city lights twinkled in the distance. "He saved me more than once, and he's in danger because of things related to me. I can't just ignore it." Meanwhile, Ethan, after leaving Sanctuary, didn't go back to his rented apartment in Queens. He knew it was no longer safe. He contacted a few old friends, people from his former world, whom he trusted hadn't been bought or manipulated by Alistair. He needed information, resources, and a temporary hideout. The first thing Ethan did was try to find out about the motorcyclist. He replayed every detail in his memory: the bike, the rider's build, the distorted voice. He asked a friend specializing in IT to try and trace the call from the unknown number, but with no results. The woman was clearly very careful. However, a small detail in her words caught Ethan's attention. "I'll contact you again when it's appropriate." That meant she had her own agenda and would probably reach out to him proactively. He decided to wait patiently, but also to continue searching for clues. Next, Ethan began to plan his counter strategy against Alistair. He knew his father would use every trick, from putting financial pressure on Vance Innovations and smearing Isabella's reputation to more dangerous actions targeting those close to him. Ethan needed to be one step ahead. He contacted a skilled lawyer he once knew, someone unafraid of the Thorne family's power to consult on possible legal measures. He also thought about Julian Croft. Julian would definitely not miss this opportunity to profit. He might provide information to Alistair or try to cause trouble for Isabella himself. Ethan needed to neutralize Julian before he could act. The following days passed in tension and secrecy. Ethan moved constantly, changing locations, using encrypted communication methods. He was like a lone wolf, wary of everything around him, but brewing a counterattack plan in his heart. He didn't just want to protect himself and those he cared about. He wanted to put an end, once and for all, to the manipulation and crimes committed by the Thorne family. He knew it was an almost impossible task, a fight against a giant. But Isabella's resilient image facing Alistair, Marcus's self-sacrifice to protect him, gave him strength. He was no longer Ethan Cole running from his past. He was Ethan Thorne, and this time he would fight for his future. One evening, while in a temporary safe house, Ethan's phone rang again with an unknown number. It was the same distorted female voice. "It's time we talked face to face, Ethan Thorne. There are a few things you need to know, and perhaps we share a common enemy." The offer for a face-to-face meeting from the mysterious woman made Ethan hesitate. In the world full of traps set by his father, any unclear meeting could be a deadly snare. But his intuition told him that this woman, who had risked herself to save Isabella and Marcus, might hold important information, or even a key to turn the tables. The meeting spot was a small, old-fashioned coffee shop, nestled in a quiet, artsy neighborhood, seemingly long closed. Ethan arrived earlier than scheduled, carefully observing his surroundings, ensuring there were no signs of being followed. He chose a discreet spot in the shadows opposite the cafe, waiting patiently. Right on time, a female figure approached. Slender build, quick and decisive steps. She wore a long, hooded coat, obscuring most of her face. As she neared the cafe door, she paused, looked around once, then gently pushed the door open. The door wasn't locked. Ethan waited a few more minutes before deciding to enter. Inside, the coffee shop was dark, with only a few small candles lit on a table in the corner, creating a dim, mystical atmosphere. The woman was already seated, her hood still up. "You're punctual, Ethan Thorne." She spoke, her voice still distorted, but sounding a little closer than over the phone. "Who are you? And why did you help us?" Ethan asked directly, without beating around the bush. The woman slowly raised her hands, pulling down her hood. Under the flickering candlelight, her face gradually emerged. Ethan froze. It was a familiar face, someone he never expected to see in this situation. "Sarah Jensen, Isabella Vance's loyal executive assistant. You? Sarah? Why is it you?" Ethan stammered, surprise evident on his face. Sarah smiled faintly, a smile tinged with fatigue but also full of determination. Her voice was now back to normal, clear and articulate. "Surprising, isn't it, Ethan? I guess Miss Vance would be just as surprised if she knew. But the motorcycle, those skills. And how do you know about the Thorne family?" Ethan asked, still bewildered. "The world is smaller than you think, Ethan, and everyone has their own secrets. Before becoming Miss Vance's assistant, I had a different past, a past I don't often talk about. It gave me a few special skills and connections not everyone knows about." She paused for a moment, her eyes turning serious. "I help Miss Vance because she's a good boss, a friend I respect. And I help you because I know what kind of man Alistair Thorne is. Your father, he's caused too much suffering, not just to your family." Meanwhile, in their hideout, Isabella Vance wasn't idle either. After a few days of rest and composing herself, her CEO instincts kicked in. She couldn't let Ethan face everything alone. Using a secure phone Marcus had given her, she tried to contact her most trusted connections in the financial and legal worlds. People who might not be swayed by Alistair Thorne's power. "Marcus, we need to find out what moves Alistair is making against Vance Innovations. He won't just stop at threats. There will definitely be covert attacks," Isabella said to Mr. Bellwether. Marcus nodded. "I agree. Alistair is very adept at using shell companies and shady investment funds to manipulate the market or pressure opponents. We need to review all of Vance Innovations' contracts, partners, and investments. Any unusual signs must be thoroughly investigated." Isabella also thought about Julian Croft, and Julian too. She said, her voice tinged with anger. "He definitely won't miss this opportunity. Is it possible he's working with Alistair? Very likely. Julian is an opportunist. He'll do anything to benefit himself. We need to be wary of him as well. Marcus replied. They began to work, gathering information, analyzing the situation. Even in hiding, with their experience and networks, Isabella and Marcus could still grasp the movements in the outside world. They discovered a few unfamiliar investment funds showing signs of steadily accumulating Vance Innovations stock in small but regular amounts, a common tactic seen before hostile takeovers. A few key company partners also began to show hesitation, delaying signed projects. Clearly, Alistair Thorne's hand had begun to reach out. Back at the coffee shop, Ethan listened to Sarah's story. His initial surprise gradually replaced by respect. So what do you know about my father's plans? I know he won't stop until he gets what he wants. And what he wants now isn't just for you to return, but also the absolute silence of anyone who knows the Thorne family's secrets, including Miss Vance. He sees Miss Vance as a potential threat, someone who could influence you, or worse, team up with you against him. Sarah handed Ethan a small USB drive. This contains some initial information I've gathered on Alistair's recent activities, the front companies he might use to attack Vance Innovations. It's not much, but I hope it helps. Ethan took the USB, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. Why are you risking so much, Sarah? Because I believe in what's right, Ethan, and because I see something in you and Miss Vance worth protecting. Alistair Thorne has ruled for too long. It's time someone stood up. She stood up. I have to go now. It'll be dangerous if I'm discovered. Be careful, Ethan, and if you need to, use this number to contact me. She handed him a small piece of paper with another number. This is a more secure channel. Sarah left as quickly as she arrived, leaving Ethan with the USB and countless thoughts. He was no longer alone. There were people, unexpectedly, willing to stand by him. This fight, though difficult, was not without hope. Immediately after meeting Sarah, Ethan wasted no time. He found a safer place, an anonymous apartment an old friend from the tech underground had helped him prepare, equipped with all the necessary devices for him to work without fear of being monitored. The USB drive Sarah had given him contained invaluable information. There were records of shady financial transactions, diagrams of shell companies, and even a few audio recordings of suspicious conversations involving Alistair Thorne and his close associates. Ethan worked relentlessly, his eyes glued to the computer screen, his fingers flying across the keyboard at breakneck speed. The financial and business knowledge that had been drilled into him since childhood, things he once despised and tried to reject, now became sharp weapons. He analyzed cash flows, traced connections between front companies, and gradually sketched out a partial picture of how Alistair Thorne manipulated and controlled his empire. The information from Sarah matched what Isabella and Marcus suspected. Alistair was using a network of investment funds and subsidiaries to secretly acquire Vance Innovations stock, while simultaneously pressuring key partners and suppliers, creating an artificial financial crisis to devalue the company, forcing Isabella to either sell at a ridiculously low price or seek a rescue investor, who would be none other than one of the entities controlled by Alistair. He's trying to slowly strangle us, Isabella said to Marcus over an encrypted video call, her voice firm. We can't let him do that. Vance Innovations is my life's work. We need to counterattack and counterattack smartly. Alistair is very cunning. Any rash move could lead us right into his trap, Marcus replied. At this point, Ethan decided it was time to contact Isabella directly. He used the secure communication channel Sarah had provided, an end-to-end encrypted messaging app. The first message appeared on her phone screen. Isabella, it's me, Ethan. Isabella startled, her heart beating faster. She quickly replied, Ethan, are you okay? Marcus and I were very worried about you. I'm fine. Ethan texted back. More importantly, I have some information you need to know. Sarah helped me. He shared his findings from the USB, as well as his initial analysis of Alistair's strategy. Isabella and Marcus, on the other end, listened intently. Ethan's information provided them with a deeper, more detailed insight into what was happening. So he's trying to create a market shock to take over Vance Innovations. We need to stop that, and at the same time, find a way to expose his manipulative practices. Isabella concluded. I have an idea, Ethan said after a moment of thoughtful silence. Alistair has always been confident in his ability to control information and cover his tracks. But that very confidence could be his weakness. If we can gather enough evidence of him using front companies to manipulate the market, violating insider trading regulations or unfair competition laws, we can present it to the Securities and Exchange Commission or federal investigative agencies. That's a big gamble, Ethan. Alistair has insiders in many places. The evidence must be truly solid and irrefutable. Marcus warned, I know, but we don't have many options left. Sarah's USB is a good start. I'll keep digging, looking for more suspicious transactions, leaked emails, or internal documents. Isabella, you and Marcus focus on stabilizing the situation at Vance Innovations, reassuring investors and partners, and collecting any evidence of unusual pressure or coercion. Ethan replied. They began to outline a coordinated plan of action. Ethan would operate in the shadows, gathering and analyzing intelligence. Isabella and Marcus would be the public front, both defending and seeking ways to counterattack legally. Sarah, in her role as a secret source, would continue to provide valuable information when possible. Meanwhile, Alistair Thorne was not idle either. After the failure at Sanctuary, he became even more cautious and ruthless. He ordered his security team to find Ethan at all costs, while intensifying pressure tactics on Vance Innovations. A few negative articles about the company's unstable financial situation began appearing on obscure financial news sites, clearly orchestrated. Anonymous threatening calls to some Vance Innovations board members also began. Julian Croft, after his humiliation, was even more eager to prove his worth to Alistair. He actively gathered all possible information about Isabella, her weaknesses, hoping to redeem himself by performing a service. He didn't know that his every move was being silently monitored by Ethan and Sarah. The war had truly begun on multiple fronts. On one side was Alistair Thorne's mighty financial empire, with almost limitless power and resources. On the other, a small but determined group, Ethan, the heir who wanted to renounce his legacy. Isabella, the resilient CEO protecting her life's work. Marcus, the quiet but wise mentor. And Sarah, the loyal assistant with her own secrets. The chessboard was set, and every move could determine the success or failure of the entire war. The following days were a tense battle of wits and a relentless race to gather evidence. Ethan, with informational support from Sarah and his sharp financial analysis skills, gradually uncovered loopholes in the network of front companies Alistair Thorne used. He discovered a series of suspicious money transfers between these subsidiaries, unclear investments, and even signs of money laundering through overseas real estate projects. Each new discovery was carefully recorded, encrypted, and sent to the legal team he and Isabella had secretly assembled. At Vance Innovations, Isabella and Marcus faced a real storm. The company's reputation declined following negative articles. Some small retail investors began panic selling shares, causing a degree of turmoil in the market. Major partners, though still committed, also began to raise questions about the company's stability. Isabella had to continuously appear before the public, participate in interviews, and hold press conferences to reassure public opinion and affirm the strength of Vance Innovations. She appeared strong and confident, but only Marcus knew of the long nights she spent awake analyzing data and searching for solutions. "We need a strong counterattack, Isabella," Marcus said during a private meeting. "Defense alone won't be enough against Alistair. We need to show him we're not easily bullied." Isabella nodded. She had a plan. Based on the information Ethan provided about unfamiliar investment funds accumulating shares, Isabella's team had secretly tracked and identified a few key individuals behind these funds, people with close ties to Alistair Thorne. Isabella decided to use market regulations themselves against them. She allowed a few rumors about Vance Innovations being on the verge of launching a groundbreaking new tech product, a trump card that could change the industry's landscape, to be purposefully leaked. These rumors, combined with the confidence Isabella displayed publicly, caused Vance Innovations' stock price to unexpectedly rebound, even higher than before the crisis occurred. Those trying to acquire shares cheaply now faced a dilemma: either continue buying at a higher price or stop and accept that their initial plan had partially failed. Alistair Thorne, of course, didn't give up easily. Seeing his initial financial pressure tactics weren't as effective as desired, he switched to more sophisticated schemes. A few key engineers at Vance Innovations suddenly received attractive job offers from rival companies with unbelievable salaries and benefits. Some critical material suppliers also unexpectedly announced difficulties in delivering on time, affecting Vance Innovations' production schedule. Julian Croft, in an effort to regain Alistair's trust, actively participated in this. He used his connections to approach and poach Isabella's personnel, while also trying to extract internal information that could be detrimental to the company. He even tried to approach Sarah Jensen, Isabella's assistant, suspecting she might be a weak link. But Sarah, with her vigilance and experience, didn't give Julian an opportunity. She skillfully fed him false information, decoys that made Julian and Alistair waste time and resources on fruitless investigations. Simultaneously, she secretly continued to pass important information about Julian's and Alistair's moves to Ethan. The battle grew increasingly complex. Ethan, Isabella, Marcus, and Sarah were like players in a grand chess game, each move requiring careful calculation. Ethan, after many long days and nights of tireless work, finally compiled a relatively complete dossier on the illegal activities of a few key subsidiaries in Alistair's network. The evidence wasn't enough to bring down an entire empire, but it was sufficient to cause a legal earthquake if released at the right time. "It's time for our first strike." Ethan texted Isabella. "I have enough evidence to make some of Alistair's big fish squirm. We'll start there, create chaos within his ranks, and force him to expose more vulnerabilities." Isabella read the message, a confident smile appearing on her lips. "Ready when you are, Ethan. Let's show them the power of truth." The first counteroffensive plan was drawn up. They would target one of the largest front investment funds Alistair was using to manipulate the market, leaking evidence of insider trading and anti-competitive practices to a reputable investigative journalist courageous enough to confront the Thorne family's power. The real storm was about to brew, and this time, the wind might no longer blow in Alistair Thorne's favor. The decision was made. Ethan, through an anonymous, multi-layered, encrypted communication channel, sent the entire dossier of evidence he had collected on the front investment fund Orion Capital, one of Alistair Thorne's key players in market manipulation schemes, to David Chen, a veteran investigative journalist for the New York Chronicle, renowned for his articles exposing major financial scandals and his fearlessness in the face of power. David Chen, after receiving the massive amount of information and verifying the authenticity of several key pieces of evidence, immediately recognized the scale of the case. This wasn't just a few isolated shady deals, but an intricately designed network to manipulate the market, evade taxes, and potentially launder money. He and his team began working day and night, connecting events, cross-referencing information, and preparing for a series of explosive investigative reports. A few days later, on a Monday morning, just as the New York financial market opened, the New York Chronicle dropped the first article in its exclusive investigative series, "The Phantom of Orion Capital: Unmasking a billion-dollar market manipulation network." The article didn't directly name Alistair Thorne, but the connections between Orion Capital and Thorne Consolidated subsidiaries were clearly exposed, accompanied by irrefutable evidence of insider trading and anti-competitive behavior. This hit like a bombshell on Wall Street. Stocks of companies linked to Orion Capital, including several publicly traded companies secretly controlled by Alistair Thorne, plummeted. Investors panicked, and regulatory bodies began to take action. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission immediately announced a formal investigation into Orion Capital and related individuals. Alistair Thorne, upon reading the news, was furious. He couldn't believe someone dared to challenge him so openly and with such detailed evidence in hand. He immediately convened an emergency meeting with his legal team and closest advisors. "Find out who's behind this, and silence them at any cost," Alistair roared. Meanwhile, at Vance Innovations, Isabella and Marcus closely monitored the developments. Although the article didn't directly target Alistair, the crippling of one of his key financial instruments created significant internal chaos within the Thorne empire. The pressure on Vance Innovations also temporarily eased, as Alistair had to focus on dealing with the new crisis. Ethan did it. He hit Alistair right where it hurts. Isabella said to Marcus, her voice filled with admiration, This is just the beginning, Isabella. Alistair won't take this lying down. He'll retaliate, possibly even more fiercely. We need to be prepared for that. Marcus replied, his expression still tinged with worry. Ethan, from his hideout, also watched every development closely. He knew leaking information about Orion Capital would make Alistair suspect his closest confidants. This could create division and distrust within Thorne Consolidated, weakening his father's ability to react. He also anticipated Alistair would try to find the source of the leaked information. Indeed, Alistair Thorne, after his initial rage, quickly ordered his cybersecurity team and private investigators to turn over every stone to find the traitor. Julian Croft, in an effort to redeem himself, actively participated in this, hoping to find a link to Ethan or Isabella. The situation grew more tense as a few key figures at Orion Capital, those directly managing the shady deals, began to show signs of panic. Some tried to flee the country, while others sought to contact the SEC, offering more information in exchange for leniency. The network Alistair Thorne had painstakingly built over many years began to show its first cracks. Sarah Jensen, in her role as Isabella's assistant, maintained her calm and professional demeanor, but she too felt the heat of the battle. She knew Alistair wouldn't exclude anyone from suspicion, even those who seemed unrelated. She became more cautious in her actions and words, while secretly continuing to provide Ethan with updates on Thorne Consolidated's reactions. Isabella, seizing the opportunity while Alistair was preoccupied with the crisis, pushed forward Vance Innovations' business activities. She announced a few newly signed major contracts, affirming the company's stability and growth potential, aiming to regain the trust of investors and partners. She also secretly worked with her legal team to prepare for the possibility of Alistair retaliating against Vance Innovations. The war wasn't just on financial and legal fronts, it was also a psychological one. Ethan knew Alistair wouldn't be easily defeated by a single blow. He still had many cards up his sleeve, but at least the initiative was no longer entirely with Alistair. A glimmer of hope, however faint, had begun to shine, and Ethan, along with his comrades, was determined to hold on to that hope, fighting until the very end. The earthquake named Orion Capital not only shook Wall Street, but also struck directly at Alistair Thorne's pride and absolute power. He was not one to easily accept defeat, especially when attacked so openly and unexpectedly. Immediately after the damaging information was published, Alistair launched a brutal retaliation plan, targeting everyone he suspected of involvement, especially Isabella Vance and Vance Innovations. First, a large-scale smear campaign targeting Isabella was unleashed. Malicious rumors and fabricated stories about her private life and management abilities began appearing on tabloid blogs and social media. The image of a talented, independent female CEO was suddenly distorted into that of an ambitious, manipulative individual, even someone who engaged in unsavory relationships to achieve success. Alistair's goal was clear: destroy Isabella's personal reputation, thereby undermining shareholder and partner confidence in Vance Innovations. Next, the financial attacks became more sophisticated and aggressive. It wasn't just about acquiring stock anymore. Alistair began using his network to choke off Vance Innovations' cash flow. Major banks, where Isabella's company had significant loans, suddenly became hesitant, demanding tighter credit conditions or even reconsidering existing agreements. Venture capital funds previously interested in Vance Innovations' new projects also collectively withdrew or postponed indefinitely. He's trying to suffocate us financially. The company's cash flow is being squeezed from multiple directions. Isabella said to Marcus and Ethan in an urgent online meeting, her voice clearly tense yet still firm. Ethan, through information Sarah secretly provided, learned that Julian Croft was playing an active role in this. Julian, with his investor experience and extensive financial connections, had become a valuable tool for Alistair in identifying weaknesses and launching damaging attacks. He even tried to approach former Vance Innovations employees, those who had resigned or been fired, promising great benefits if they provided damaging internal information about Isabella. We can't let Julian continue this. He's not only harming Vance Innovations, but is also trying every way to locate me and those helping us. Sarah is in danger, Ethan said, his voice full of determination. Meanwhile, the SEC and media investigations into Orion Capital continued, but Alistair Thorne, with his power and experience, had begun to deploy countermeasures. He hired the best legal teams, used political connections to exert influence, and spread disinformation to distract public opinion. The legal and media battle became a high-stakes chess game, with each side trying to gain an advantage. Faced with the increasingly dire situation, Ethan knew he couldn't just rely on gathering evidence and waiting for the authorities to act. He needed to take bolder steps, more direct strikes against Alistair. My father has a secret archive. It's where he keeps his most critical documents, evidence of Thorne Consolidated's darkest deals, things that could bring him down completely. It's incredibly well protected, almost impenetrable. But if we could access it, Ethan said to Isabella and Marcus. That's a crazy idea, Ethan. Even if you know where it is, breaking in there is tantamount to suicide. Marcus interrupted, his voice full of concern. I know, but we're running out of time. Alistair is tightening the noose. If we don't get stronger evidence, something irrefutable that forces the authorities to act decisively, all our efforts will be for nothing. Isabella will lose Vance Innovations, Marcus will be in danger, and I'll never be free. Ethan replied. Isabella listened silently. She saw the determination and recklessness in Ethan's eyes. She knew he was right. They needed something powerful enough to end this war once and for all. Where is that archive, Ethan? She asked. Ethan looked at her, then at Marcus. It's right inside Thorne Consolidated headquarters, in Alistair's private office. A secret room, camouflaged and protected by multiple layers of high-tech security. A daring and risky plan began to form. They would have to find a way to infiltrate the lion's den, to face the beast directly. Sarah, with her special skills, could play a crucial role in disabling the security system. Ethan, with his knowledge of his father and Thorne Consolidated structure, would be the guide. As for Isabella and Marcus, they would provide support from the outside, creating diversions and preparing for what happened next. This was an all-in gamble. If successful, they could topple an empire. If they failed, the consequences would be catastrophic. But looking into each other's eyes, they knew there was no other way. It was time to act, and act with utmost decisiveness. The decision was made. The final gamble, and also the biggest, was laid on the table. In the following days, Ethan, Isabella, Marcus, and Sarah worked like a veritable special operations team, each with a role, all aimed at a single objective: infiltrate Alistair Thorne's office and retrieve the evidence that could bring him down. Ethan, with his extraordinary memory and deep understanding of the place where he grew up and was trained, redrew the detailed layout of the top floor of the Thorne Consolidated building, where Alistair's private office and secret archive were located. He meticulously described each security layer: infrared surveillance camera systems, motion sensors, reinforced steel doors, multi-layer electronic locks, and even an alarm system directly linked to Alistair's private security team, who were armed and ready to act immediately. This is no walk in the park, Ethan said during a planning meeting over a secure channel, his voice serious. The slightest mistake could cost us all dearly. Alistair never takes security lightly, especially with the things he wants to hide most. Sarah Jensen, with her mysterious past and special skills, became the key figure in planning to disable the security system. She researched the types of cameras Thorne Consolidated commonly used, figuring out how to create a loop of fake footage to bypass the monitoring team. She also analyzed the structure of the electronic lock system, searching for potential vulnerabilities to exploit. I can handle most of the electronic security, Sarah said confidently, but we'll have very little time. Once the system detects an unusual interference, it will automatically trigger a silent alarm to the rapid response team. We'll have a maximum of about 15 to 20 minutes inside. Isabella Vance, with her CEO mindset and strategic acumen, was in charge of creating a diversion scenario significant enough to draw Alistair Thorne and most of his security team away from the building at the exact time Ethan and Sarah made their move. She decided to use Vance Innovations itself as bait. She would stage a crucial new product launch, an event that would capture the attention of the entire media and financial world, and accidentally leak information that a competitor, one secretly backed by Alistair, was plotting to sabotage the event. Alistair won't miss an opportunity to cause me more trouble, especially with media attention. He'll want to ensure his sabotage plan succeeds, or at least witness my failure. That will draw him and a large part of his security force to the event venue, far from Thorne Consolidated. Isabella explained. Marcus Bellwether, with his calm demeanor and experience, handled logistics and remote support. He would monitor all external movements, alert the team to any unusual developments, and prepare safe filtration routes. He also used his old contacts to gather more information about the work schedules and habits of the security team at Thorne Consolidated. The plan was meticulously detailed. The time of action was set for Friday evening, when Vance Innovations' product launch would be at its peak, and the Thorne Consolidated building typically had fewer people. Ethan and Sarah would infiltrate through a little-used service entrance in the basement, using fake access cards and specialized equipment to bypass initial security checkpoints. Then, they would have to navigate through multiple floors, avoiding cameras and patrol staff, to reach Alistair's office. The risk was enormous. If discovered, they would face not only legal arrest, but also Alistair Thorne's brutal revenge. But none of them wavered. Their belief in justice, the desire to expose the crimes, and their mutual trust bound them together into a solid unit. The fateful night finally arrived. Isabella, in a stunning evening gown, appeared on stage at the product launch, captivating all eyes. She confidently introduced Vance Innovations' new technology. But her heart was constantly worried about Ethan and Sarah. Alistair Thorne, as predicted, was at the event, seated in the VIP section with a calculating expression, surrounded by a large team of bodyguards. Julian Croft also hovered nearby, his eyes constantly searching for something. Meanwhile, a few blocks away, Ethan and Sarah, dressed discreetly in black, had begun their operation. They bypassed the first security layer in the basement smoothly, thanks to a signal jammer and Sarah's skills. Ethan's heart pounded as they stepped into the service elevator, selecting the top floor. With each passing floor, the tension mounted. He knew that in just a few minutes, he would have to confront the darkest secrets of his family, and possibly his own father, if something went off plan.